Mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts. How do we like our martial arts? We like them mixed!
Yes, the UFC is back in the land down under for UFC 284, which goes down tomorrow night, Perth, Western Australia, where a hometown hero and the current featherweight champion of the world, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, will look to etch his place in history in front of a hometown crowd while trying to knock off the seemingly indestructible force that is the UFC lightweight champion of the world. A lot to unpack with this card is, listen to that music. I am jacked up as we welcome you to the live UFC 284 preview show here on MMAfighting.com. Thank you for joining us on the eve of UFC 284 and this historic fight. I am Mike Heck. Joining me in this venture, we have a couple of very special guests. First, let us welcome in the Prince of Positivity, the best friend to us all, the incomparable Canadian Alexander K. Lee. Hello, AK. How was the NBA trade deadline for you?
Boring and uneventful, which has not people aren't taking it up too well up here. But I'm a slow and steady wins the race, don't change horses midstream kind of guy, Mike Heck. So I'm fine with that. I'm dealing with the lack of excitement that we thought we might have had with the Toronto Raptors. But we've got enough excitement this weekend, which we're going to talk about. So I'm already. That was yesterday, Mike. I'm already past it.
There we go. And speaking of excitement, let me introduce our special guest, my fellow born New Englander, featherweight contender in the UFC, one of the most exciting strikers in the sport, a man who will most likely be paying attention to tomorrow night's card, and a man who thinks I am somehow the younger brother of his manager and head coach, Tyson Chartier. Let us welcome in the great Calvin Kattar to the UFC 284 preview show.
Let's
Calvin,
go, baby.
What's up, man? How you doing?
Good, man. How you doing? And yes, you look exactly like Tyson. Let it be known.
Oh, man, you guys and your doppelganger comparisons, it's unbelievable.
Right.
You and Tyson are cut from the same cloth.
Well, you got all the looks, though. Tyson got everything else.
Well played. You are from New England after all. So let's get into this thing. AK, I want to start with you, and I think you know where I'm going to go with this because this main event is obviously fascinating. We got Islam Makhachev versus Alexander Volkanovski. We got champion versus champion, #1 versus #2 pound for pound. Gigantic fight. We have the interim featherweight title fight between Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett. We have some pivotal matchups. We have some just really fun fights on the books. This is a card, obviously, that took some hits. We had Robert Whittaker and Paulo Costa once upon a time. We had Kai Kara-France versus Alex Perez once upon a time, to name a couple. But a day away from UFC 284 as it stands, AK. Pre-weigh-ins, what's the gymnastics score?
Oh, right. I keep forgetting to prepare these. I think because it's taken me a while to sort of get ramped back up into, 2023 pay-per-view mode. It's above, listen, just the main event. I know, UFC fans, most of us who came up, in that boom period, we're used to like cards being stacked top to bottom, and we still expect maybe 5 or 6 of those a year. But I think we're in this age now. There's so many cards. You have to get used to this one fight, almost like a boxing style event, which is no disrespect to all the guys fighting. Again, if you're a hardcore MMA fan, you tune in from the first early prelim to the final fight. I'm sure you're going to have a great time. But as far as name value, just even how long some of these guys have been in the UFC, it's a bit lacking there. But the main event is so strong. And I feel like if it goes well, regardless of whether you're rooting for Islam, regardless of whether you're rooting for Volkanovski, if you just want to see a competitive fight, if you want to see someone just get dominated and blown out, either way, there's going to be some super compelling storyline, barring some, freak accident happening, coming out of this main event. And that alone, Mike, I think gives this event a degree of difficulty of 9.4. So I have lofty expectations for this card, but a lot of that is just on the main event. So if it could be the opposite. If the rest of the card is good and that main event's like a stink bomb, it could drop. It might not come close to hitting that. So I'm almost just rating the main event. Again, with respect to all the other pretty decent matchups we have on here.
Calvin, you're obviously a fighter in the UFC's featherweight division, but you are a fight fan as well. You are a big boxing fan, and every so often in combat sports, we get certain fights that are, there's major blockbuster attractions, and then on the other side, we get the best versus the best, or the best from one division moving up or down to fight the best from another, and the stakes are high from a merit and legacy perspective. And this seems like, at least from the merit and legacy side, this is one of those fights between Makhachev and Volkanovski. So from where you sit, how excited are you for this fight with so much at stake here from a legacy perspective?
Yeah, from a legacy perspective, I don't think it gets bigger than the pound for pound #1 fighter in the world taking on the #2 pound for pound fighter in the world. So it's big, a lot on the line for this one, and I'm excited. I'm rooting for our 45-pound champ to go out and get the job done. But he's gonna have his hands full. Islam's coming off a lot of momentum. Both guys are very confident. Is what I like to see. What you'd expect from champions, but one of them's gonna be wrong tomorrow night, and we're gonna find out who.
Both of these guys, AK, they just keep winning and they keep getting more dominant as time goes by. Makhachev has been a freaking wrecking ball, and a lot of his most recent fights haven't even been competitive, even for a second. And Volkanovski has had competitive fights during this run, but his last 3 have just been ridiculous. Like the Ortega fight, yeah, there was a dicey moment or two, but for the most part, dominant performance. Korean Zombie fight, he pitched a no-hitter. In the Holloway trilogy fight, he pitched a perfect game. He was freaking David Cohn, David Wells out there. It's as close to a perfect performance as you can get in that Holloway fight. And on top of the accolades, these two guys, AK, might have the best fight IQ in the entire sport. Volkanovski, we've seen many times during some of these matchups, the second Holloway fight in particular. But with Makhachev, I think it's a bit more underrated because, like we just said, his fights just haven't been all that competitive. So we really haven't needed to see him kind of change course and change game plans because he's just trucking people. But like, how do you view everything involved from a stylistic perspective, a little more than 24 hours away from this fight?
Oh, that was for me or was for Calvin?
That's for you, AK.
Oh, I'm sorry, Calvin. I swear I'm much sharper than on this than usual. It's funny you bring up the IQ thing because it is something we've sort of discussed, and it always seems to come a little more with the Volkanovski side, maybe because he's the smaller guy. But I think also people equate IQ with adaptability, and that's sort of what you were alluding to there, Mike. Where Islam has been so dominant that because we haven't had to see him, necessarily change gears that much. I mean, he showed off a well-rounded game against Charles Oliveira, but he was also in the driver's seat for the majority of that fight, which again I think requires its own sort of intelligence. But I think when people see Volkanovski get out of like an Ortega choke or figure out all these these angles that Max Holloway, no one else could solve over the course of 3 fights, does it 3 times. IQ certainly comes to mind. We certainly view that as intelligent. But again, Makhachev also, like, listen, both guys are coming from amazing camps, decorated coaches, have looked to be nearly unbeatable, whether it's been one-way traffic or whether it's been like Volkanovski's had to do kind of we think he has faced, I think, the slightly stiffer resume, and for him to have triumphed over like that variety of opponents is just incredible. So, I mean, IQ a huge factor. Size, I think, is definitely going to play into it. I'm sure we'll talk about that more. There's a lot that's been made, not just about as soon as this fight was booked, the size difference between them, but now people are saying, well, Islam, is he struggling with the weight cut? Is he going to go up to 170 at some point? Is he actually like a welterweight and just kind of taking big fights at lightweight now until he can't anymore? So I know we'll discuss that further, but I just wanted to make a note of that now because I know it's an issue.
Calvin, since this fight was booked, and I've heard it more over the last couple of weeks, one of the top thoughts going into this one, or really any Islam Makhachev fight against any really good striker, is, if you keep it standing, fighter X has a really good chance. And in this case, it's Volkanovski. And if you can't, Islam should have a great night at the office. And the more I look at this one and dive into it and go back and watch old Volkanovski fights, the more layers to this fight that I actually see. So when you view it from through that lens, is this more of a can Volkanovski keep this fight standing question to you? Is that the biggest question you have, or is there something a little deeper to it for you?
I mean, when you talk about what they say, I always keep in mind that they say a lot of shit, and that's their job. A lot of people talk a lot of shit, but on fight day, we're going to find out. Yeah, if Alex can keep it standing, supposedly he's going to have the better stand-up. If it hits the ground, they're saying Islam, is going to take him out. We've seen both guys prove that before, but we've never seen them match off with each other. So styles make fights, and it's interesting to see how this one plays out. I think Alex is right. He's shown a lot of ability to get up from the ground anytime he's taken down. Very rarely is he held down for long. And in that Ortega fight, you're able to see him get out of some deep submissions. So, training with, was it Craig Jones out there down under? I mean, he's saying he's got a bigger body that's very capable at putting on deep, dangerous submissions. And so I think biggest confidence is at all time high, but it's going to be interesting to see how these two match up together.
Yeah, I love the Craig Jones wrinkle to this whole story. I think that's very brilliant on Volkanovski's part to utilize that asset to his advantage. So, AK, we posed this question in the community tab earlier today, and it was on Heck of a Morning yesterday, I believe. But if Volkanovski can pull this off, who is the biggest underdog on this entire card, and win a second title and beat freaking Islam Makhachev and stop this win streak, is he the GOAT? Or is he the beefote, the best fighter skill for skill of all time? Is he the best fighter of all time? Is he the greatest fighter of all time? Or is he just simply in both conversations?
These questions are always a little silly because, and maybe I look back on period of the UFC, the mid 2000s, early 2000s, the GSP Anderson Silva stretches. Maybe we romanticize it too much looking back on it, but it does feel like there's something to be said about staying in your division and putting together 7, 8, 9 straight title defenses. People can say the level of competition on average is better now. That's fine. I won't argue with that. But those guys, Anderson Silva, GSP, whichever champions you kind of want to name from that era, they were fighting the best of the best of that. There's a few title defenses you can go, oh, well, this is like a mandatory challenger. But that's what happens when you defend a title 9, 10 times in a row. There's not everyone is going to be this clear-cut number one contender. So the argument for Volk is that even before he was the champion, he's beaten Jose Aldo. He's beating Chad Mendes. He's beating really, really good opponents. And just because they weren't title fights and they don't count towards this title tally that he's racking up now, should that be held against him? So he'll have a case. And going up and knocking off Islam, it would just be incredible. Now you wish this had been built up a bit more, kind of like when BJ Penn fought GSP, where both guys had racked up a bunch of title defenses before finally getting thrown in there against each other. But at the same time, how can you argue against the fight getting put together? I mean, would this fight be more appealing a year from now after, Islam defend the title a few more times, Volkanovski's up to like 8 title defenses? Sure, but MMA is such a crazy game. And we've seen things can change drastically in 3 months, much less in a year. So, very happy to get it now. And if people want to say Volkanovski's the greatest of all time or whatever, the best pound for pound of all time after this, I'll understand the case. He won't go to number one on my all-time list, but I'll certainly understand the argument for it.
A Makhachev win, Calvin, is obviously great. It's another brick to the wall of building his legacy. But obviously, I think the stakes are higher for Volkanovski if he wins, because we're going to have all these different conversations and different discussions. So if your fellow featherweight goes in there and gets the job done, what do you think that does for his legacy in this pantheon of all-time greats in the history of the sport?
Well, I think he's already on GOAT Mountain for what he's done in the featherweight division. He's taken out, like you said, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, a lot of GOATs that we already considered in the featherweight division. Now he bumps up another weight class, takes on Islam. I think he's just writing his story. He's not done writing his story yet. This is just one win to add to his resume, his legacy. And, it's going to put him that much closer. I don't think he's going to be the greatest of all time just after that one, but he's definitely in the discussion. And every fight, he stakes his claim to why, he's that guy.
Calvin, I wanted to ask you this. Because Volk's been saying, I want to be active. So if I win the lightweight title, I'm going to go back and forth and defend both belts and keep both divisions very active and busy. And I don't know if I think his heart is saying that, and I think he believes that. But to me, if he wins this belt, like, why go back to 45 when you could fight? I mean, if Conor McGregor beats Michael Chandler, Conor McGregor is getting a title shot at 155. It's just going to happen. So he can get fights like that. He can get fights like Chandler. If he beats Makhachev, like, I'm not saying the road's easier. It's still very tough, but the biggest fights for him are probably at 55. So if he wins this belt, do you think he's actually going to go back to 45 and try to defend both belts, or do you think he's sticking at lightweight for the foreseeable future?
Can we swear on this?
You could say whatever you want. You're Calvin Kattar.
It's encouraged. It's encouraged.
You know that chart where it's like the fuck around and find out? I feel like this is my opinion, is like the more rich you get, the less weight you cut. You know what I mean? It's like, so it depends how paid he gets after this fight, man. If he wins, he just took out the guy that's the best in the lightweight division, so he doesn't have to move down, let alone making all that extra money, like, to have to cut all that weight. When you sat in that, sauna or cut that weight, and that last couple of pounds is coming off, it takes a lot to get to that moment. And I mean, he's already solidified his legacy at the 45-pound division. I don't know why he'd have to go down, like you're saying, to 45, but I do respect the hell out of him being busy as a champion. I mean, what more could you ask from a champ is to go out and want to fight the best guys in your division and keep it moving. And he's proven that he's done that to date. So we'll see. But I don't see him going back down to 45 if he gets that fuck you money.
I don't either. So we'll get to picks in a moment, but this is a very fun weekend for sports in general because we got the UFC card, and then of course we get the Super Bowl on Sunday, which I'll be watching on an airplay, and I'm sure you guys will be watching. So I figured for this fight in particular, since it is Super Bowl weekend, I created some fake prop bets that I wanted to present to you guys and see what you guys thought. So AK, I'm going to start with you. And obviously we won't know the answers to these questions until after the fight. So first question for you, AK, and then Calvin, I'll give you a chance to respond. Who will land the most strikes in the first round, Makhachev or Volk?
Oh, I have to say Makhachev because I am predicting a Makhachev to have some success with his takedowns in round one. And again, I know people, when they're thinking strikes, are thinking like, oh, if they're standing up and trading, Volkanovski's winning. I'm thinking Makhachev takedown, gets a few ground strikes in there. I don't know how many will be considered significant, but I could see him landing like 7 or 8 solid shots in that first round on the ground that have that score, that have Volkanovski paying attention, that have him in his corner kind of like, all right, let's recompose, before the rest of the second round. We knew this was going to happen. So I'll definitely lean towards Makhachev, if only because I think Volkanovski isn't going to get the chance to really throw anything significant in round one.
Are we counting are we counting kicks and all that?
Of course.
Right? Yeah. Not that, I think it's the biggest game plan to go and kick a guy that's looking to take you down, but I feel like Volk's going to outstrike him in the first round for sure.
This is actually a really fascinating question. Like when you hear it, you might just be like, Mike, you're an idiot. But I really think that this is a real question. So, Calvin, I'll start with you. Who shoots for the first takedown in this fight? Makhachev or Volkanovski?
I think Makhachev.
AK, do you agree? I think Volk's gonna. I think Volk might be a little tricky out there. I think he might try to be the hammer in the takedown.
I could see him.
I'm not trying to persuade
fainting.
you.
No, I could see him fainting. I could see him changing levels. I could see him like going for one, but I don't think actually doing a full-fledged shot, like just shooting in for legs. I do like the idea that it should be part of his game plan because, yeah, listen, a little offensive wrestling could really throw Islam Makhachev off. Not that I think Makhachev is not prepared for it, but just like, he's probably not afraid of being taken down by Volkanovski because I bet he assumes he could probably just get back up pretty easily. So I think it'll happen. Did you say, who will shoot first? I still think Makhachev. I think we will see Volkanovski try it during the fight, Mike, but specifically your question, it has to be Islam first.
If Volk does try, like you're saying, I think it'll get that factor. He's not expecting it, but at the same time, I think that this fight's going to play out exactly how people think. They're going to do what got them to this moment. They're going to fight, the way they do. And it's going to play out similar to how we think. It's just which one's going to impose their will and make it happen, But I think they're going to fight how they fought up to this point.
AK, will there be a knockdown in this fight?
Oh, that's good. Will there be a knockdown? Mike, I'm the prince of positivity. Yes, Volkanovski will knock Makhachev down.
Ooh, Calvin, will there be a knockdown in this fight?
I want to go as far as say there'll be multiple knockdowns in this fight, but maybe that's just high hopes.
I love it.
They're durable guys. He's durable, and they, I think they're going to go for it, man. A lot riding on this one.
Calvin, over under 4.5 rounds.
I think under. I think someone's getting finished.
AK?
I'm picking decision. So I think I got to go over that 4.5.
All right. So I'm still going to ask you this, Calvin, in case it does go to a decision. So
yeah,
I'll start with you, AK. Over under 1.5 total points. Should it go to a decision? Over would be a 49-46, a 50-45 or more. Under would be 48-47 or a draw.
Under. Super competitive fight, not a draw. I won't do that to the people. I won't speak that into existence. Not that draws are the worst thing, and then you can always run it back somewhere else. If it's a great fight, I'm sure people would love to see it again right away. You're holding up 2 divisions. That's a whole other thing, but that's a problem that the UFC would be happy to deal with. At least they have an interim title, in the co-main event for the featherweight division. But Yeah, but I am going under. I do think it's going to be close. No draw. It'll be 48-47s are going to be up there for sure.
Alex, me and
Agreed.
you, I mean, this is going to go one way or the other because I'm going over. So either one of us is going to be really correct or one's
Perfect.
going to be
Perfect.
So we got to come back to this after the fight.
Yeah,
But I'm going
absolutely.
over. I think someone's cards getting pulled. I mean, the best are able to find a way to make. If the other guy makes a mistake, it's like they put it under a magnifying glass, And sometimes you can't fix things until post fight and you see what happened. I just feel like although both guys are tough and can get it done, I feel like one guy's gonna expose something, and they're just gonna make it maybe look easy. I don't know.
I feel like this last one is the proppiest prop of all, especially with Super Bowl weekend. And I'll start with you, Calvin. Whose name will be mentioned more during the fight by the broadcast team? Max Holloway or Khabib Nurmagomedov?
Man, that's a great question. We got to find a way to put squares on this fight, right? You're talking about all these props for the Super Bowl. How do we get squares on this damn fight? I would say Khabib's going to get mentioned probably maybe 2-1 to Max.
AK? I mean, the way this has been going, you're just going to say Max Holloway, right? Because you guys have been
100%.
against each other this entire time.
And listen, and I was planning to anyway because if Cormier was on the call, I mean, this wouldn't even be a question. It's Khabib by a mile. It would have been like over under. We would have just done over under Khabib mentions like 20.5 or something. So yeah, it is going to be Holloway because even though Volkanovski finally closed the door, I thought he somewhat closed it after the second fight. I know it was really close. After he definitively closed it after the third one, he's still inextricably tied with Max Holloway, which is not the worst thing in the world, frankly. But so I think it is going to keep coming, especially if it stays on the feet. You can hear a lot of things about how that level of competition, going 15 rounds with Max Holloway, that's really what kind of had why he's been able to adapt like this and put it on Makhachev like this. So yes, I'm once again in opposition with Mr. Kattar. I'm going Holloway.
I got an over under for you. Not that I want to bring too much attention to this fight anyway, but in the co-main, over under one highlight video, you're going to see of me and Emmett in our fight. I'm going with the under. I don't think there's shit to show.
Wow. Even in like the promo before the fight?
Maybe, but you're not going to see my face in it.
Oh, man. That's a great one.
That's my guess.
I just want to say, I saw people asking, because Calvin's here, they were asking, what are Calvin's thoughts on that Josh Emmett fight? I think you just got it. So I think anyone
yes.
want to know how Calvin feels about that fight.
We're definitely going to get there, but let's go ahead and make the official picks. Islam Makhachev, the massive favorite, minus 380. The comeback on Volkanovski is plus 310. Biggest dog on the card, AK. Can he get it done? Can Volk do it again? Will he become the champ?
When the fight was first announced, I had said my first instinct, Makhachev. I'm just like Makhachev, bigger. I had just seen him destroy Charles Oliveira, a fighter who I think so highly of. So unsurprisingly, I was like, well, Makhachev's not going to lose to anybody. I'd put him up against Prime Fedor at this point. Like I think he's so good. So that was my thinking for a while. And then you know how we are in the media. We dig into it. We do all these shows. We're talking about it. You start seeing all the different angles. And then I started really to tilt towards Volkanovski. Just think about his wrestling ability and I think, moving up to 155, he's pretty comfortable with it. Maybe this is his weight class going forward, like he said. And even though he'll be shorter, he has so many other gifts and skills and ways to make up for that. But then I was like, maybe I'm overthinking this. And so I've come back to Makhachev. I'm like, listen, Makhachev is the bigger guy. I think he'll be significantly bigger. I think it'll be like shockingly bigger. But he's already looks incredibly bigger. But I think even on fight night, he'll be like, oh yeah, oh right, this is the lightweight, possible welterweight against a featherweight who is just moonlighting as a lightweight, even if he does compete at 155 going forward. So the size is such a factor. The wrestling ability, we all know Volkanovski will give it a good challenge. He's going to get down. He's going to get back up. That at some point that just wears you down. And again, I don't know. Maybe I haven't seen Makhachev tested. Maybe he weathers. Maybe he can't weather the storm. I should say, if Volkanovski foils his number one weapon, maybe this turns to a stand-up fight and Islam gets exposed there. I don't know. But there's so many ifs. I really can only focus on what I feel like I've seen, at least primarily from the Islam side. And as great as Volkanovski is, and a loss does not make him any less great, because again, he's the guy going up. as great as he is, I have Makhachev winning a competitive decision. So I'm going and still at the end of in the main event.
Calvin, what's your pick? What's the official Calvin Kattar pick?
No surprise here, Mike. I'm gonna differ from Alex, and I'm gonna let my New England loyalty, even to my own detriment, come out and stick with my featherweight division. Volk. I'm gonna say he's gonna go out and get it done, even though he's gonna have a tall order and have his hands full. I'm just gonna hopefully he finds a way to get it done because I'm rooting for the featherweight.
First of all, I'm very proud of you, Calvin. That is a very Boston sports fan answer right there, and I appreciate that so much. Heading into the Makhachev Oliveira fight, I said this over and over again. Everything on paper screams to me that Makhachev should just run over Charles Oliveira, but Charles Oliveira brought a chaos factor that can be like a mystery for every single opponent. Like, you can have this man dead in the water, and he will somehow find a way to invoke the chaos clause and find ways to win. I feel like competitively, stylistically on paper, this is a much more difficult matchup for Makhachev than Charles Oliveira was, just based on the skill sets. I was with you, AK. When this all started, I'm like, oh boy, like, I love the idea of this, but I think Makhachev's just gonna do what Makhachev does. I have leaned more towards Volkanovski, like on the scale. If this is middle, I'm like here on Makhachev right now. So I'm 48-47 Makhachev right this second. I think it's a very competitive fight. I think it could be 2-2. I think Twitter's going to be like, oh, it's 2-2. Some might say 3-1 one way or the other, but I think it's a very close fight. I think Makhachev gets a big takedown late, stays on top late, thwarts a late rally from Volk to win a decision. But again, my opinion could change come the People's Pre-Fight Show tomorrow. But I'm fascinated by all of it. AK, you look like you want to say things.
No, I'm just thinking, Mike. I'm just absorbing your words. Carry on. Please don't let me interrupt.
It could change by tomorrow, but this is my opinion today.
Today, yes. See, more New England sports vocabulary right there. So let's go to the co-main event, interim featherweight title. We got Yair Rodriguez versus Josh Emmett. Look, this is a good fight. These are the two guys who were, vying for a number one contender spot for a little while. Both got victories in different kinds of ways. And yeah, we get an interim title attached, but more so it's to determine if Volk does come back to 45, depending on the result, who will be the number one contender for the undisputed title. So Calvin, you have fought Josh Emmett. You have shared 25 minutes with him. We have talked about this fight a few times in person. International Fight Week. You were kind of sick of talking about it at that point. You're just ready to move on, but you haven't had the chance to fight Yair yet. But when you found out about this matchup, what stood out to you about this pairing between Yair Rodriguez and your former opponent, Josh Emmett?
Just that I should be going to Perth and fighting tomorrow night. But aside from that, shots fired. I can't knock both guys. They did what they had to do. It's just, it's not their fault. How it played out. I mean, I'm sure it worked out well for Josh Emmett the way our fight went. In my opinion, I stand with the majority and the facts of the significant strikes and damage that you see in our fight. But as far as Yair, it's more shots fired. Where's that soundtrack? Let's go. As far as Yair is concerned, I never fought him. I mean, it's tough the way that one played out. I'm sure he wanted to fight with Ortega. He had the shoulder thing, and it sucks the way that played out. Everyone loses in that situation, So that being said, I think Yair has more well-rounded striking, and I think he'll edge it out on the feet. I think Emmett's definitely got the power factor, but landing it's another thing. And I think the wrestling is kind of neutralized between them both. I think they both, have adequate wrestling to defend, and I don't see it hitting the ground so much. But if it does, I don't see it hanging out there. I think it's be more of a striking contest, and I think I give the edge to Yair considering that.
Calvin, when you fought Josh, he was babyface Emmett, right? He was clean shaven.
Yeah, yeah. So a
You
different
remember?
mythical fighter coming
Yeah.
out. So who knows?
Could this be a mythical creature? Could this be sea level Kane or third round Derek Lewis? Is this a different guy now? Because he looks like a completely different human being.
Yeah, he needed something after the last one, so maybe that's it.
Uh,
Listen, man, I've been holding this shit in for a year. I've been holding this shit in for a year, and then you add an ACL injury on top of it. I'm ready. I'm ready. Sign it.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing. AK, what do you feel? What are you thinking about this fight?
Look, it was billed as, you know, precision and technique of Yair against the power of Josh Emmett from the beginning, and I don't see any reason like why it wouldn't play out that way. This is MMA. Things often don't play out the way they are on paper. And this is not to say Josh Emmett doesn't have good technique and Yair doesn't have power. But yeah, I do think the story that will be told here will be, you know, Yair's sort of being evasive and countering and attacking from these sort of unorthodox angles that Josh Emmett's going to have to deal with on the fly. You know, I mean, you can prepare all you want, but until you're in there with a guy like that, it can be a serious question mark. And same with Yair. I mean, he's just got to mind his P's and Q's. He's been in there with a lot of great strikers. He's been in there with people with power. But all it takes is one shot. And I think Josh Emmett, I mean, well, I'm sure Calvin would disagree. He took a bunch of shots and lived to tell the tale and dominated the fight 50-45 in his mind. But, but
I mean, yeah, my arms are killing me. My arms are killing me in that fight after.
he really laid into those arms, those haymakers, right off your elbows and your wrists.
My shoulders were so sore, man. I got to tell you.
But yeah, so I think a lot of people will be, you know, if they're picking Emmett, they're probably thinking, oh, he has to knock Yair out. I don't know if that's the case. Again, Emmett snuck out that decision against Calvin somehow. So, and by the way, Josh, if you're out there listening, please, I'm being respectful to our guest. Yes, Mr. Kattar, yes.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt. You were saying he edged it out somehow. Please. I was saying Chris Lee.
Oh, Chris Lee. Yes, ironic. By the way, my brother's name is Chris Lee. It is not the judge. I swear that he lives in Japan. He has nothing to do with the UFC. But every time people start talking about Chris Lee, I'm like, I'm not related to him. Calvin, I did want to ask you. You fought Josh. Of course, you haven't fought Yair. But when a guy like Yair, who has such a reputation for like throwing kind of weird stuff, like strikes you've literally never seen before. Everyone, of course, remembers the zombie, like upward elbow. I had never seen it before. Is that something you have to factor into your training, or is it just something you kind of ignore and just say, listen, we got to prepare for anything, but we're sticking with how we prepare for, you know, most strikers? Because again, I'm thinking like for Josh Emmett, does he stick with what he usually does, or is it like, okay, we got to really review some of this crazy stuff this guy throws because it's very likely going to come out at 284?
I feel like this is the football theme, right? Super Bowl coming up. I feel like Yair's elbows are kind of like special teams in football, you know? Could be the X factor, maybe in the fight. You're going to have to pay attention to it for sure. But, I mean, I wouldn't base a game plan around it, you know? Be prepared for weird shit and get back to what you do. You know, try not to focus so much on what the other guy's doing. Be aware of it, but you want to implement your game. And I know I'm taking a lot of shots at Emmett, but you know, like I said, I know he came out, tried fighting a fight to win, and I mean, you can't control what happens after that. So none of this stuff is, you know, I get it. It is what it is. But you know, bias aside, I just think Yair, you know, has a more diverse striking attack, and I think that'll just be a little bit more to handle. Emmett's power is a game changer if you get caught with it, but if you don't, you know, I think those kicks, long range kicks of Yair are going to be tough for Emmett to get in on. But a fight's a fight. We'll see how it plays out. But I wouldn't base my game plan around, you know, things that might the unorthodox strikes that Yair might throw. I, you know, kind of more worried about my shots, and I think that's what Emmett's going to be doing in the fight.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that special teams analogy blew my mind. I'm stealing that.
That's awesome.
I will hat tip Calvin Kattar every time I do it, but I am stealing that for the record. I will be mentioning that in the future.
Hey,
I like that.
I mean, some games have been won with special teams, though, right?
Yeah,
I mean, some games have been won.
We've seen in MMA. Sometimes it's that special teams that gets it out of there. Wow, I like that.
Yeah, one elbow is Matthew Slater, the other is Devin Hester. There you go, special teams legends right there. AK, it seems like Calvin's going with Yair. Are you joining him?
Yeah. Yes, on this we agree. I do think
wow.
Listen, it's going to happen every now and then. I don't normally agree with people from New Englanders, even my best friend Mike Heck, but it happens. And in this case, yeah, I just think I'm a big like quality of competition guy. And listen, Josh Emmett's been there with some great ones. Calvin Kattar, present company included. But I think Yair, also him going, he's also fought Max Holloway, and I think he's just got a little more diversity. I think diversity goes a long way. Just a little more a big game experience. I don't know if people will disagree with me. I do feel like Yair has had big game experience. Maybe that's not Josh Emmett's fault. He fights who he fights, but Yair has had those opportunities, hasn't won them all, but has had his moments even in fights he's lost. Again, I bring up the Holloway contest. So I know he's favored. I know it's kind of a boring pick, but I do lean towards Yair finally getting some form of UFC gold around his waist.
Yeah, both guys have had pretty crazy roads to get here. So I remember interviewing Uriah Faber back in like 2015, or even I think it was maybe even before that, and he was telling me about this guy on the come up, Josh Emmett. Just wait, but he's been hampered with injuries, so he's had a lot of bad luck, and that's kind of what's happened. Like a lot of injuries, just weird things have happened along the way. He's been active, been inactive. The Jeremy Stevens fight took him out of action for a long time. Yair's had issues with the UFC, and he was released, and then he was back, and he's dealt with Jeremy Stevens type fight aftermath as well. So both guys have had really crazy roads to get here. But I'm also leaning Yair Rodriguez. I just think he's a bit more dynamic. Yes, I think Emmett could wrestle here and throw a little bit of a wrinkle in it, but I just don't know how much he will wrestle in this one. And I think this one starts off pretty competitive. I think Yair gets a big moment in the end of the first, and then that momentum will just sort of carry him forward. And I think he gets a third round TKO finish. I don't think this fight goes the full 5 either way. But I think a nice, crazy setup and finish for Yair, maybe a shot to the body that hurts him, and then he goes in for the kill. So that's what my gut tells me. And we'll see what happens tomorrow. Maybe Josh Emmett can keep this train rolling. So we also have Jack Della Maddalena versus Randy Brown, which is a great fight. These are the 3 fights people seem to be talking about more than anything. But Calvin, I'll begin with you. What is the low-key banger of UFC 284, and why is it Paca Porta versus Justin Tafa?
Honestly, like you said, man, I'm with Alex on this one. I'll go back to I'm with him where he says 94% of this card is that main event. I'm going to try to just, no disrespect to anybody else on the card, but just tune in for that one, pass over that co-main, and then just, enjoy my night while watching the main event, get me some wings, and then get back to physical therapy so I can take one of these guys out soon.
There we go. AK.
Hey, listen, that's real talk. Listen, it's our job to find these low key bangers. It's Calvin Kattar's job to be in those bangers. So listen, how can I hate on that answer? But I'll go way down the card. I really like this matchup between Loma Lookboonmee and Elise Reed. I think Loma is so much fun. I don't know if she'll ever be a champion unless they introduce 105. I think there's some fighters at 115 that are just stylistically and size-wise will be an issue for her. But she's so fun to watch when she gets that striking going, as you can imagine, given her background. So, and on the flip side, if Elise Reed upsets Loma Lookboonmee, I think that's a huge feather in the cap for her. Elise Reed's really tough. Has fought some good competition, I think, since coming to the UFC. And I don't know if I haven't looked at the odds. I assume, let me see here. Yeah, pretty big underdog, plus 230. People aren't giving her much of a chance, but what a trip that would be for her to go over to Australia and pick up a win over Loma. So, I mean, obviously, I'm favoring Loma, but what I like about the fight is that whoever wins, I think there's kind of a cool storyline coming out of it. And either of these women could make waves at 115. So I'll go all the way to the early prelims.
It's a good pick. Back to you, Calvin, because, you mentioned going through physical therapy right now. You're trying to heal up, but you're a man who wears many hats. You don't just wear the fighter hat and the Patriots, Red Sox, Celtics, and Bruins hats. You wear the promoter hat as well. And you are the man behind Combat Zone MMA in New England. I believe your 35th or 36th show is coming up. And this is a big one coming up in March at Encore in Boston, because I believe there's going to be some special guests coming out for this. Talk about that and who might be coming along here. Who is coming along here?
I was just looking at the fight card trying to pop in on that last question because I really didn't know everybody else, but I'm excited about that. But aside from that, yes, Combat Zone 79 at the Encore Casino in Boston, Mass. Yes, we have an Encore in Boston, and we have a special guest. UFC President Dana White is going to come into town his old stomping grounds and do Looking for a Fight with Matt Sarandon Thomas. So I'm pretty excited about that. The only thing better than competing in the UFC is just providing that opportunity to get the next crew of guys from the New England that opportunity to fight in the big show. So I'm really excited about that opportunity. It's honestly why I've been involved with this for so long. Since I was about 25, I've been promoting fights. Like you said, we're on our about 40th event, and I'm just really excited to see someone from New England hopefully get that shot to compete in the UFC, especially in front of the boss Dana White.
So I know that, the date's been announced. This announcement is out there that Looking for a Fight's going to be filmed there. I think matchups are going to be announced sometime probably next week. Let the 284 fire flame out a little bit, and then, so it doesn't get buried under all of this. But are there any names that you can share from the scene that will be competing on this card?
Yeah, we got some guys coming out of the woodworks who's fought for Combat Zone in the past, some day one guys. We got Brendan Morant. He's fighting on the card. He's fighting Dan Rubio. And then we also got Connor Matthews on the card. We're getting New England Cartel member Tom Pagliarulo on the card. And,
Nice.
a bunch of top game fighters, as you can imagine. I feel like Tyson Chartier, my manager, manages some of the best fighters in New England. And we're looking to feature that in front of Dana in order to capitalize on the opportunity and, really feature some top level talent here in New England to get that shot to fight in the UFC.
Will Mitch Raposo be on this card?
We were trying to get Mitch on, but he's a little back and forth on where he's, on a few things personally with him. So unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be on this card, but he was on the last one that we had at the Encore in Boston, and he had a great time. He'll probably be in the venue, just not on the fight card.
Fair enough. Calvin, how much time do you have? Do you want to stick around and answer some questions, or do you got to roll?
I'm with you. What's up? What are we answering?
All right.
I'm
okay, let's go.
Shots fired everywhere. Look out.
Well, let's go. Speaking of fighters, let us bring on another fighter. Undefeated amateur legend. Some say he is the top-ranked amateur fighter, not just on the West Coast, not just in the U.S., but around the world. Mr. 3024 himself, Casey Leiden, on the ones and the twos. And it's time for the peeps to let their voices be heard. So what are the peeps talking about? What do they want to talk about here with UFC 284 around the corner?
They have lots of questions. All right. Let me see what I got here. This is an interesting one.
True or false? We were spoiled by Khabib's domination that Islam isn't getting the respect he deserves heading into his first title defense. What do you think about that, Calvin? Do you feel like, because I think Khabib is part of the story, obviously, and with Khabib not being in his corner now, this could be a step, I guess. I hate saying like he's been in the shadow of Khabib, but he is part of the story. There's no doubt about it. And this could be the first step into sort of creating his own legacy without Khabib, I guess, moving forward and into the foreseeable future. But do you feel like because of Khabib's domination and his attachment to the story that maybe Islam isn't getting enough respect heading into this fight?
Well, I mean, it's also kind of what got him a lot of notoriety leading in, right? Aside from his impressive wins. So it's kind of a catch-22 there. But maybe a little bit of that. Maybe a little bit spoiled by Khabib's domination. But at the same time, that was kind of so short-lived, too, that we're kind of robbed as well of all of that. I don't know. I mean, you're going to really make me lead off with this one out of all four of you? The professionals here, you're going to ask my opinion? I don't know.
I mean,
is he getting the respect he deserves? I mean, I don't know. He's just the number 2 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. I mean, that's pretty good respect right there. You know what I mean? Promo could be I don't know.
You tied a perfect bow there. He's the number 2 pound for pound guy in the world. He's the biggest favorite on the entire card.
I don't know if I understand the question. How much more respect is he supposed to be getting?
Well, how about this? If just say if Khabib didn't retire, the whole Charles Oliveira thing didn't happen. But just assume Khabib won and beat Charles Oliveira too. Also, if it was Volk versus Khabib, would we look at this fight differently, or would you see this fight as the same?
It'd be a bit different. I think people will be making the same arguments. Islam and Habib are not the same guy. There's a lot of similarities. Obviously, they're not the same guy. I think, as Jed would point out, if you were here, like Habib has a bit of an edge in athleticism. Habib is, I think, athleticism doesn't get talked about enough. The guy was just an incredible, like, physical specimen. In addition to his technique, his wrestling technique that he's been working on since he was like a baby. But he was also an incredible athlete. Islam's not a bad athlete. He's just not. I would say just maybe just a slight grade below where Habib is. So it's not the same fight, but we would be saying a lot of the same things as far as like, well, we know Volk can grapple really well. We know he can get up from takedowns. Can he do that against Habib? I think the odds would be even steeper if it was Habib. The other difference between him and Islam is Habib's path to sort of goathood. I'd say was a little like he at least had the RDA fight in there, which Islam unfortunately could never pin down. It wasn't his fault. That was a big one for Habib early in his career. And then he piled up wins against good competition. And then his title run, of course, was nothing but killer names. So it's kind of what I said earlier in the show. Like, I almost wish Islam had a chance to get some lightweight title defenses in there to up his reputation a bit. But as it is, by the general public, yeah, listen, a lot of people don't know who him or Volkanovski is, which sucks. Like, your average Conor McGregor fan, for example, doesn't know who these guys are. So that sucks. So in a sense, maybe they're both getting disrespected, but I don't know if Islam in particular is getting disrespected anyway. He's a huge favorite on the card.
Yeah, and this would be, look, I don't want to keep beating on the promotion drum because we've been talking about this ad nauseum over the last couple of weeks, and I don't think this is being like completely under promoted compared to past UFC cards. But had Habib been in this fight, this would be promoted in a much different way, mostly for something you just touched on, AK. Habib has this fight on tomorrow is a hardcore fan's delight. Those who are tapped into the sport know how great both of these guys are. And we are pumped and we are jacked and we are fascinated by all of it. But I make this comparison all the time. If I walked to the grocery store right now and just found 20 random people and I said, Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler are going to coach the Ultimate Fighter, 12 of them would react, maybe more. If I went over there and said, hey, guess what? Tomorrow, the UFC is putting on a pay-per-view headlined by Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski, 20 of them would look at me like I had 14 heads on my body. There's just not a lot of casual appeal to this fight. But with Habib, there would be immense casual appeal because people know who he is. He's the dude that had the back and forth with Conor McGregor and jumped out of the cage and tried to beat up Dylan Dennis in the crowd. Like, there's more casual appeal with Habib. More people know who he is than they know Islam Makhachev. So it'd be promoted differently. It'd be presented differently. But I guess I understand the question in that regard. But that's just kind of how I view it. Like, we look at it differently because Habib, when he left, he was a star. Like, he was a star. He got to that table. He was a star. Islam isn't quite there. And even if he beats Volk, I still don't think he's quite there. He takes a step forward for sure. If Volk wins, he might get a seat at that table with Conor and like the Masvidals. He might be at least at the club trying to get in. They might waive his cover charge to get him in and go to the VIP section. But he's there. He's in the conversation. Plus the crowd, it's a star-making potential moment for him, more so than it will be for Makhachev. So I get it from that perspective, but I don't think anyone's disrespecting the skill set of Islam Makhachev heading into this one because the betting odds and how most people are viewing it suggest otherwise.
I think that goes back to the promotion. And you keep saying, the average sports fan, not MMA fan, doesn't know who Islam is or Volkanovski. And that's Dana's job. That's Dana's job to be going, these are literally the two best fighters in the freaking world at their prime facing each other. Holy crap. This is amazing. Do whatever you got to do to watch this freaking fight, which is absolutely, that's not even BS. That's not even over the top. That's true. And so I really do agree with all the kind of, we're actually kind of off we're actually not even talking about the question anymore.
I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying. These guys deserve more. That's the job
of Dana to tell people that. To tell people that over and over and over and over again. We're so annoyed. We get it. It's the best versus the best. And I know what you're saying. I totally agree with you. What you were saying, Mike. But I think that's why you promote.
But this is also no different than how they promote most cards, unless it's John Jones.
This isn't most cards. This isn't most cards. I
understand that. Yeah. I understand that. And also, if we took off the power slap glasses for a moment, and none of those things are on social media, like, would we still have the same thing? Like, we're inundated with the promos. Like, I mean, it is what it is. But without those, would we feel the same way? I don't know. So,
And I want to go to this. Sorry, you can read it, the question.
Has this card not been promoted much either due to Power Slap or Dana starting to promote Tough 31 being Michael Chandler versus Conor McGregor? Again,
yeah.
Chandler, Conor, casual appeal. It's going to be on ESPN. It's not just on ESPN Plus. It's going to be on linear ESPN. That's different. And plus, when it comes to like pay-per-view promotion, I talk about this all the time. This deal with they've won. Yeah. The UFC has won. They have this deal with ESPN. They're making a floppity jillion dollars every time they put a fight card on. Derek Lewis versus Sergey Spivak went on at like 5:30 in the morning, and they still made a floppity jillion dollars because those guys walked out and had a fight, and there was a fight card. They've won. They've already won. But now, with Chandler and Conor, we're going to ESPN. Dana's talking about these massive places where we could host this fight, possibly AT&T Stadium in Dallas, possibly the big stadium in Vegas. To them, like, pay-per-view buys are cherry on top of the sundae. Like, if this thing does one pay-per-view buy or 1 million, I don't think it changes very much on the bottom line. But if they sell out this arena and they sell out Cowboy Stadium and they sell out T-Mobile for John Jones versus Cyril Gahn, they reap the benefits of those gates. So the promotion may not be great here in the U.S. because Dana and the UFC are well aware that we are on board for this. But the big objective for them is sell this freaking stadium out. Let's pack this thing. Let's do a $10 million gate. Let's promote it in Perth. Like, we haven't had a card in Australia in so long in front of people. Let's build the promotion there. And I think that's what they've done. Like, I think that's what this is all about. And look, the Power Slap thing is stupid. I've talked about it a million times. We don't need to get into it. But I mean, look, to me, I don't know this for sure, but I think this has first season of Ultimate Fighter vibes to it, where I don't think TBS is like, hey, we're going to pay you all this money to be on our network. I think the UFC is like, well, let's take a chance here and let's see if we can get a time slot and let's see how it does. Let's follow it with, follow AEW and see if we can get some of those people to stick around. And then at the end of the season, if the numbers are good, maybe TBS locks them down to a long-term deal. They've already got the ESPN money. They've already got the ESPN deal. So, I mean, nothing really changes on that front. But if Power Slap gets picked up next year for the next 5, that's a whole bunch of money going into the promotion's pocket moving forward. So I don't think the Power Slap thing is just there and we just see it and we have feelings and emotions about it. But if you took all of that out and you looked at the promotion out, if you looked at their social media accounts outside of the Power Slap stuff, I think you would see that it probably deserves more, the fighters themselves, these two in particular. But I don't think it's like being heavily under promoted compared to most cards. I just don't.
Let me say quickly, I'm going to end this poll here. Got almost 1,700 votes in the poll. Scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you for UFC 284? 49%. 10. 49%.
Ooh,
30.
That's good. See?
39%, 7 to 9. So almost 80% are in the somewhere from 7 to 10 range. So, and again, maybe it's like what we've all been saying. It's just the one fight. The other thing I want to touch upon was there was a question, not a question, but a statement earlier for Calvin. Calvin, someone said they want to see you at 155 at some point. They're like, you would have bangers with Poirier, Chandler,
You're taking my questions, AK. You're doing my job, AK. Okay, you're doing my job.
I pinned this one out. Did you have it?
Yeah,
was this one ready to come out?
Yeah. You're taking
So
everything I've worked hard for.
I had pinned it to YouTube. I thought you would grab it right away. But anyway, Calvin, it's been a long time since you fought at like a decade. You were a different man when you fought at 155. But would you want to do that in the future if those kind of matchups were in the cards?
Back to that fuck around, find out chart. I mean, I ain't that rich guy yet, so my ass is cutting weight to 45. Then I'll bump up. But if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Right now, I'm just sticking at 45. I like my reach on these 45ers, and then I feel like I got that in the back pocket, but I didn't really achieve everything I've set out to do at 45 yet, so I'm focused on that right now.
If you did go to 55, what advantages in your performance do you think would come out? Like, would anything change?
I just think you get. It's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I'd probably have maybe a little bit more power, a little bit more explosiveness, maybe a little bit more athleticism. definitely a full belly. So I feel good about that. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it'd be something to figure out. But for right now,
Yeah.
45, I've gotten good at getting there, and it pisses me off just enough to want to go in there and just unleash it on someone. But I feel like 55, I almost don't even know if I feel like I've gone through a cut or a weight or a camp. Like, damn, this is kind of a little easy.
I've kind of talked to some coaches and some other fighters about that, and like how that weight cut, even though maybe in the media and even just general, health and safety, it isn't the smartest things, but like you said, it does give you that anger, that little extra. No, I can't lose this fight. I've gone through so much freaking hell.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Someone's gonna pay.
Someone's got to pay. Someone's got to pay. Yeah. Awesome. We talked about the prelims.
Anyone talking shit on there?
Probably.
I've been ignoring this shit. There are some trolls here.
Come on, let me hear some shit talk. I want to
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, you hear.
Someone said
my ears are getting too cauliflowered, and it keeps pushing out my earbuds.
Someone said I don't know what they're implying. It said Calvin hasn't the last big win was against a guy who was long gone out of the UFC and fell off the charts before UFC released him. I guess the Giga. I don't know. I guess the Giga Chikadze fight didn't happen or something. Yeah, I know. I'm like, he literally beat. That was a huge win.
I know he was 9-0 in the UFC, and that streak. I mean, and that's the other thing. You're gonna always see me signing these fights. Look at my strength of schedule, like you're talking about. I want to fight. I share that mindset with the champ. I want to fight the best guys. I want to beat them all on the way to getting that belt. My goal is to get that belt. And everybody they're looking to have me defend it against, I already, face, beat. That's like the mindset. Now, going out there and getting it done is another thing, and it's not the easiest thing in the world to do, but that's like my mindset going into every one of them. But, get rid of that guy, whoever that is.
All right. Well, we got more of him. You asked for it, Mr.
Let's
Cater.
go.
Here we go.
I got thick skin, man. I'm from New England.
Can I just say one?
Wait,
Oh man, so this is like the Jimmy Fallon show.
I'm gonna have to look that name up. Get me an address. You better not be from New England, Cody.
Oh no.
Can I just say one thing?
Look, this is he's.
No, he's wrong. No, Cody, you're wrong. I don't know. I'm sorry, you're wrong.
But last big
and you want to know why?
Honestly, I didn't even consider Jeremy a big win. I finished him emphatically. Don't get me wrong. I broke my nose with an elbow. No, not to say, he's a tough guy. A lot of oh man, no, like I feel like the guys like Arnold Allen, tough guy. 9-0 UFC. Giga, 9-0 in UFC. Max Holloway, whatever his record is, man, ridiculous. Like Jeremy Stevens, short of 5 pounds overweight, first one on the scale. I feel like there's different levels of professionalism. He was on his kind of way out.
People forget about that.
Yeah, these guys are over here trying to become a champ. I'm fighting guys that are trying to chase a belt. It's different. You know what I mean? Whatever. Fuck you, Cody. I'm messing with you.
No, listen, Cody has said, hold on. Cody has said, he's laughing it up. It's fine. It's all good. I think we're all having a good time.
See, that's how you,
Cody,
this
is how we make friends in New England, man. Fuck you, fuck me.
That's right.
Yeah.
You have a beer after. Can I just say one of the most underrated moments of last year was the Calvin Kattar victory tour after the Giga Chikadze fight, because you had receipts for everybody, myself included, and I knew you had receipts, but I took the receipt out of my wallet and just handed it to you. I was like, all right, let's go, dude. Let's go. And that was the best.
You made him insufferable. He's my best friend, but you made him insufferable after that win. I will tell you something. You both won big.
Honestly, I take it out on Mike a little bit more because he looks like Tyson just a little bit, that I want to, Gouch want to go after him a little bit more.
I forget who Tyson said I look like. Some actor who you would know. Rob something. I forgot.
He's probably talking about Brian Caldwell. He's a jiu-jitsu coach for us, and we always say Tyson looks like his twin too. So you guys could be triplets for all we know.
Oh, there we go. See, that's a show right there. That's a show.
Before we leave, can we talk about one fight we kind of glossed over, but I think it's an awesome freaking fight. Brandy Brown.
The winner of Brandy Brown and JDM. This fight is incredible. Like, this is a really good fight. I have to look at the betting odds because I looked at them this morning and I was stunned at where we're at. Jack Della Maddalena, a minus 305 favorite. The comeback on Randy Brown is plus 255. I am favoring JDM to win this fight, but Randy Brown is a tough son of a bitch, and he's on a nice run right now, and I just don't see a plus 255 for Randy Brown here. I think this is a really good fight. I think it's the perfect next step for Jack Della Maddalena. But what do you think, AK? If JDM goes in there, because I think this question probably more favors JDM, although Randy will probably get a rank guy. But if JDM goes out there and just washes Randy Brown tomorrow, do we push him? Top 10 guy? I mean, at least a rank dude, right?
I want to include Randy in this question as well, because I think Randy has had a number next to his name in the UFC rankings. He doesn't have one now. I think he's been somewhere in the 13 to 15 range, but he's certainly been around, and I do think a win could get him a name. I say this applies to both of them because I could see, I had to look at this is the UFC's rankings, not the MMA fighting global rankings, the only rankings that matter. But since we're talking about UFC fighters only, the UFC rankings, I could definitely see Della Maddalena getting Luque. He's number 9. Randy Brown also could get that, a rematch with Luque at number 9. Sean Brady, and by the way, I forgot if some of these people are books. I apologize. Sean Brady also is in that range. So at first I was like shaking my head when the question came up, but if we're just saying like, could they get one of the lower guys in the top 10? It's possible. It's possible. Yes, Della Maddalena, more likely he would have eventually another big highlight reel knockout. UFC's all over that, push him to the moon, you put him in the co-main or even headline a fight night card. Randy Brown would take a little more convincing, but I could see Randy Brown again either getting a Luque rematch or a fight with Sean Brady. So it's possible. I think either guy has a chance.
Calvin, JDM is he's kind of in a position like you were in early on in your UFC run. You got to be on a main card in Boston. It was a huge moment for you. You finished Shane Burgos. It was a great fight, a great finish, and you had your moment, and it was everything you hoped for. You wanted to fight at the Garden, and it happened. JDM is kind of in that same boat right now. He's fighting at home. If you watched the press conference yesterday, him and Volk were like the two biggest stars of the presser. So there's a little bit of added pressure about, be careful what you ask for. You just might get it, and JDM's getting it. What would be like your advice to him right now? You got to fight in Boston. I know you were so excited about that, but were there different pressures that you had to deal with heading into that opportunity, or did it motivate you just so much more? Because I think people handle it in different ways.
Yeah, it's weird because I came off a 2-week notice for my debut prior to that. So I had 10 weeks to prepare for at home in Boston. So it was kind of nice having a 10-week camp, a long time to just prepare myself for that moment. But I tried to visualize as best as I could being at home. I went to go see a Celtics game with Rob, and we were just kind of visualizing making that walk that next week. And it was a pretty cool opportunity. But yeah, there's nothing better than fighting in your backyard. I'd imagine only winning a belt or something like that, or a big emphatic main event win or something has got to come close. But for me, it was like I never really trying to buy into the crowd so much, that energy, because walking in there, I'm already on 100, and I feel like I'm trying to work out from that. Like I kind of want to take in the crowd more on my way in, but I'm literally just laser focused on this damn guy in that cage, and I can't take any of it in until I take him out almost. But yeah, I'm a fan of both these guys, man. And where he's got the home crowd advantage, look for him to feed off that. And I don't think those Aussie guys, being in that building, I don't think that pressure negatively affects them. That's earned pressure. And credit to him for having that moment. Now he's just got to go and capitalize.
It's a great fight.
And a few quick questions for Mr. Kattar.
Who does Calvin want to see next in the cage? I mean, well, let's talk about where you're at right now, because I saw you did an interview with Farah Hanoun. Perfect world, maybe we fight at the end of this year, but seems like if we're treating things from a realistic perspective, maybe early next year. But yep. Where are we at with the recovery? Is that how you're feeling? And if so, what do you does the opponent are you even thinking about potential opponents right now? Or are you just thinking about getting better each day?
After doing this, I'm thinking after this, I might go take a ride and visit that Cody kid. But yeah, no. But aside from that, I'm thinking, physical therapy is going great. I'm far ahead of schedule. But with that being said, I'm going to slow play it, man. I'm in my senior year of the fight game. I don't really want to fight in my 40s. If I fight in my 40s, I feel like I fucked up in my mindset. You know what I mean? But hey, who knows? Maybe you play it as it goes. You can only kind of focus on the next fight. And for me, I don't want to rush into that. I only want to go through this injury once, you know? So my goal is to just keep momentum going strong, and then ideally eye something first quarter next year, although I probably could be ready for something by the end of the year. But I don't really want to push it and try to get cute cutting corners. I just, let it do its thing. I'll be that much more prepared. Like I said, I always say I never get worse with more time to prepare. So first quarter next year is what I'm eyeing for.
All right. And
I like it.
Last question for Mr. Kattar.
I figured this was coming. So we get your past opponent, Arnold Allen, Max Holloway, Kansas City, Missouri. I mean, what a perfect place for a UK guy and a Hawaiian guy to fight in freaking Kansas City, Missouri. But alas,
yeah.
that's where it's happening. But what did you think of this matchup when it was put together? Because I think here's what I want to say, and then I'll throw it to you. Yeah. I love the fight in a vacuum. Like if we took just stakes away and what it means, and it's just these two dudes chucking hands at each other's faces, I'm all in. I think this fight rules. But Max Holloway, I don't know, man. Like Holloway has just derailed so many trains, and the reason we're getting this champion versus champion fight, which I love, by the way, I love this fight tomorrow. But I feel like Volk has a point when he says, I'm just waiting for a new guy to emerge. Like someone needs to come from the ashes and be the guy. And it hasn't happened in a while unless it's Max. So to throw in Arnold Allen, who's on this great run right now, in with Max Holloway, sure, if he wins, then who gives a shit what I'm saying right now? But if Max wins, then it's just like, oh, there's another guy that could be getting a title fight right now that is just kind of not in the mix anymore. So I love the fight by itself. I just was a little hesitant on it because what if Holloway wins? Maybe I'm just playing it safe. This is Patriots football in 2022 where we're not going to take any risks. So what do you think of the matchup and what's at play here?
Let me ask you something. If Allen goes out and gets it done, do you think he's more deserving of a fight with Alex than maybe Yair or Emmett?
Yeah, I do.
Kind of crazy,
but it won't
right?
happen.
Yeah,
but
no,
it won't
I feel
happen.
like this is a fight that you could see almost as an interim title. Not to take shots at the other guys, it's just the way that the fights worked out. It's not their fault, but it's just not. It's very lackluster where you got a guy coming off an injury win and then a close split decision that I feel like the majority think went the other way. It's just kind of awkward, just calling it what it is. But this fight in itself, to me, these are two guys that are deserving of an interim belt, and that the winner is definitely a clear-cut contender to me. So, credit to Allen for not sitting on his ass when he could let things play out. He's going out and we're gonna get some questions answered when he goes and fights Holloway, and we already know who Holloway is. So, it's a great fight for the fans, and and for the diehards. I just like to see it. But like you're saying, it's definitely a lot for Allen to take on. We'll see if he's ready for that test, but. I think we're going to find out a lot on that fight. I'm excited for it, man. As a fan, I'm honestly more excited about that fight than interim title fight. And like I said, it's not to throw shade too much at those guys. They can't control what happened. They're just trying to win fights. But this one, to me, is a clear-cut contender.
Yeah, and if Volk wins, I think it kind of clears a path too, because like I said, I don't think Volk's going to go back down. So maybe whoever wins the Rodriguez-Emmett fight is just going to become the actual champion anyways. And then whoever wins that fight, you just chuck him in there. Even if it's Max, makes sense. Max against either of those two guys. Yeah. I mean, who doesn't want to see Max Holloway fight Yair Rodriguez again? That fight freaking ruled. So I love the fight, and we'll see what happens. And hopefully this division, all these divisions can move forward. That's what I want to see. I'm very happy to see this fight play out, but I want to see these divisions move forward. I want to have, I want clarity when we do on to the next one. I don't want to be guessing and playing the what if game. That's a tough game. We can't give Otto points for what ifs. We can't do that.
No, I agree. I like I said, on the Prince of Positivity, I am hoping we just get the best of all possible worlds on Saturday, a definitive winner in the main event, as definitive as you can get anyway, interim champion, some exciting highlights, one of those, nobody's talking about these other fighters in the card, and they show out and surprise us all, and who knows, there's a future champion waiting under there. So I'm very optimistic. Like I said, I've set the degree of difficulty very high. Whether it comes close to that, I don't know. That's going to be on the fighters and how it all plays out. But yes, please people tune into Otno, where we hope to have the answers for you.
Yes, and we will be on No Sleep, so it'll be fun.
No.
So join us for that, and you'll hear all the noises in the hotel lobby in New York, what is going on like you did last week. So, Calvin, I want to thank you for joining us. I want to thank you for bringing the Boston back out of me. I feel like I lose it sometimes when I'm here in South Carolina, and everyone's just so nice, and they don't want to engage in exciting conversation, but you brought it out of me. I feel like I dropped a lot of R's accidentally that I'll go back and pinpoint on the rewatch. But once again, Combat Zone, big card coming up in March. Plug it one more time before we get out of here.
Yeah, Combat Zone 79 at the Encore Casino. We're working on having a stream available if you're not be able to be there in-house. But if you are, tickets are on sale. Visit the website, czmma.com. Again, it's March 15th. It's a Wednesday show, so none of you got nothing going on. So you better show up if you're in the area. And after the show and after the fights this weekend, I'm coming back on, and I'm coming for my receipts, Alex.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Absolutely love it. That is amazing. Great stuff. And we will keep track of those. So tomorrow, big day, obviously, 5:15 p.m. Eastern, we'll have the People's Pre-Fight Show. Me and Mr. 3024 down in the diagonal for me. We'll be taking your questions nonstop from 5:15 until the first punches are thrown. And then I'm walking across the street to the MMA Hour studio. It'll be myself, good old GC. I'm told there's going to be a very festive set on the MMA Hour set. So 284 watch party, 9:45 p.m. Eastern. Shaheen Al-Shadi will join us. New York Rick will join us. We might have another special guest joining us for some fun. Stay tuned for that. Then we'll have post-fight show. We'll have the post-fight press conference. Jose is in Perth right now, just dealing with all the different time differences. And, of course, AK and I will be back on Sunday morning with the matchmaking on to the next one. Casey, you could hit the music. There we go. Now we're feeling it. Now we're feeling calm. All right. Well, that's our show for AK, for E. Casey Leiden, for the great Calvin Kattar. I am Mike Heck. Weigh-in show. What time's the weigh-in show, AK? I forgot about that.
6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Ceremonials, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific.
There you go. So don't go anywhere. Just go get some dinner and come back to this channel at 6 p.m. Eastern for the weigh-in show. So thank you very much. Enjoy the weigh-ins. Enjoy the ceremonial weigh-ins. We'll see you tomorrow, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening.